How we think and feel is limited to the constraints of our reality, which is why we are so intrigued by the unknown. Cinema has the power to visualize the human psyche, to take audiences on journeys through the minds of foreign people experiencing foreign lives.
You dropped your beats. One, please.
Movies and other visual platforms give viewers the opportunity to expand their reality, to experience the impossible at a safe distance. But where does it all start? It all had to start somewhere. But before we get to that, we must ask ourselves these questions. How has the progression of society affected the evolution of cinema? How does this evolution reflect on contemporary society? What can we learn from classic noir and mystery styles of filmmaking? All great questions, but to find the answers, we must travel far back in time. Okay, maybe not that far back. Yes, the earlier times of human civilization. The mystery genre can be found in literature throughout the span of time. One of the first known theatrical performances, dating back to 429 BC, houses common characteristics found in mystery films leading up to modern cinema. Ancient Greek writer Sophocles wrote the tragedy of Oedipus Rex, a story of a recently crowned king whose mission is to find the murderer of his father, only to later find that he himself is the killer. A murder mystery, psychological whodunit, long before the culmination of American literature. Alright, let's fast forward a little bit. Yes, one of America's earliest writers, Edgar Allan Poe, who was considered to be the inventor of detective fiction. Known for literary classics such as The Telltale Heart and The Raven, his The Murderers in the Rue Morgue was the first mystery story written in English that introduced a detective. Published in the early 1840s, The Murderers in the Rue Morgue depicts the story of Detective C. Auguste Dupin, whose mission is to solve the murder of a woman whose body was found floating down the Hudson River. A story that we later find out to be behind the inspiration of the famous Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes. Similar to Oedipus Rex, The Murders in the Rue Morgue is a murder mystery whodunit detective narrative that has had an everlasting impact on modern cinema and early American literature. But why? Why did these dark and cynical plot lines remain so popular throughout history, or more specifically, American history? To answer that question, let's jump to early 20th century America, which housed the beginning of classical Hollywood cinema. The 1930s, America's Great Depression era. A major stock market crash that rendered almost 25% of all Americans without work. After a decade of devastating effects brought on by the Great Depression, America is then thrown into the most widespread war known in human history. Just like other industries, Hollywood was hit hard, but the growing demand for escapism kept the industry alive through theatrical promotions and a change in focus found appealing to the ideology of the common man.
Hey, look at the monkeys there! They think they're gonna get Tony Kamani, eh?
A new genre, symbolizing the eroding values of American society, enters the spotlight. Crime dramas. As American values begin to shift due to economic distress, gangsters and lawbenders become the stars of cinema. Crooked detectives, or G-men, are portrayed as heroes are people willing to defy failed common practice in order to survive during the turmoil of American society.
What's there to be afraid of? And when I get in a tight spot, I shoot my way out of it. Why, sure. Shoot first and argue afterwards.
Movies like Little Caesar, 1931, The Public Enemy, also 1931, and Scarface, 1932, portrayed the lavish and violent lifestyles of gangsters. The rise in popularity of these anti-heroes caused a major backlash in the film industry. Critics claimed that this new wave of cinema was excessively violent, sexual, vulgar, and lacking in morals. This is what caused the MPPDA, or the Motion Picture Producers and Distributors of America, to pass a strict set of moral guidelines known as the Motion Picture Production Code, which determined what could or could not appear or be discussed in motion pictures, thus labeling the time before this passed as the pre-code era. This led to the New York State Censorship Board to removing over 2,200 crime scenes between the years of 1930 and 1932 from motion pictures, putting a major halt on the production of violent genres like the gangster film. In the wake of the implementation of the production code, classical gangster and crime films were forced to evolve, which in turn led to the creation of other popular genres, such as film noir. Although the earlier years of cinema has been coined as the best years of film, as many great films have come out of this era, we can only wonder how the strict restrictions of the production code limited the freedom of creative expression, restrictions we don't see lifted until many decades later as American society and ideology begin to evolve. America, late 1960s. The outdated production code has weakened and been replaced with the Motion Picture Association of America's, or the MPAA's, modern film rating system. A renaissance of structure, ideas, and civil rights that not only led to the culmination of modern American society, but cinema as we know it today. Early 21st century America. The advancement of technology has heightened the audience's viewing experience. CGI, special effects, and curved televisions create endless possibilities. Media without borders. How do these realistic explosions, gunfights, and epic robot battles further the storyline? How does the audience become more involved? The bright imagery and impressive cinematography may be appealing to the eye, but if stripped, the nakedness of the piece will reveal true meaning and inspiration that can be found in more primitive work throughout the span of time.
Will you come in, Mr. Cairo?
During the time of heavy regulations brought on by the Motion Picture Production Code, and long before the time of CGI, filmmakers were forced to convey a message through the story and other aspects like camera angles and lighting. Movies like The Maltese Falcon, 1941, and Double Indemnity, 1944, are a product of the evolution of pre-code film, respecting the standards and guidelines of cinema while highlighting the gritty, adulterated aspects of early 19th century America through tough realism and multiple layered tales of greed and deception.
Well, there's not very much to go by. Cairo didn't say he did, and he didn't say he didn't. She said she didn't, but I took it for granted she was lying.
Although both films are considered to be film noir, or black film, The Maltese Falcon highlights the story of morally dedicated but rugged detective Sam Spade, and Double Indemnity focuses on successful, turned corrupt insurance salesman Walter Neff, who murders a provocative housewife's husband for love and money.
Would you have done this to me if the Falcon had been real and you'd got your money?
Don't be too sure I'm as crooked as I'm supposed to be. That sort of reputation might be good business, bringing high-priced jobs and making it easier to deal with the enemy.
This is when society's perception of the hero begins to change. Genres begin to blend, and historical aspects of cinema begin to blossom. Aspects that are still heavily seen in film and media leading up to modern times.
I have to believe that when my eyes are closed, the world's still there.
Killing changes you. It's like awareness.
I have one rule. Tonight you're gonna break your one rule.
To visualize how noir's influence can be seen in modern film and cinematography, let's take a look at the work of one of the most successful and acclaimed filmmakers of the 21st century, Christopher Nolan. More specifically, let's look at Nolan's first feature film. In the 1998 neo-noir crime drama, Following, we enter the life of a young, unemployed writer who goes by the name of Bill. His alleged loneliness and unemployment drives him to following strangers around the streets of London in an attempt to find inspiration for his first novel. His hobby, turned obsession, leads him to a mysterious, handsome man who is quick to confront him.
Who and why?
The man introduces himself as Cobb, a serial burglar who invites Bill to accompany him on various burglaries. Cobb's intentions remain a mystery throughout the film, as he claims he doesn't burglarize people's homes to take things, rather to inflict the shock of being robbed to have the victims re-examine their lives. All of this only to trick Bill into falling in love with a blonde femme fatale who Cobb secretly is also double-crossing. The femme fatale then convinces Bill to rob her ex-boyfriend, who unknowingly is working with Cobb. Cobb then murders the blonde femme fatale, makes it seem like Bill committed the crime, and then disappears scot-free with the money Bill stole as payment from the ex-boyfriend. In Following, Nolan pays homage to classic noir filmmaking by emphasizing the common elements of film noir by embracing limitations and taking the audience through a multi-layered, crime-riddled plot filled with deceit and deception. To relate this point, let's take previously stated classic noir film Double Indemnity and compare it to Christopher Nolan's Following. Besides the black and white film, dark shadows, and play on camera angles, we have our doomed protagonist, a rather convincing femme fatale, a crime-intensive atmosphere, a mysterious storyline, and of course, money to be made. When examining Nolan's and other great filmmakers' work, many of the noir-infused structural elements, characters, and themes lie deep in the formation of the plot. Deception, crime, and mystery all thrown onto a morally ambiguous, urban protagonist, hard-bodied but riddled with fear.
Los Angeles, 1937. There are lots of guys like J.J. Gittes.
Movies like Robert Towne's Chinatown, 1974, starring Jack Nicholson, is a classic example of neo-noir in the later 1900s. Filled with mystery and dread, J.J. Gittes, played by Jack Nicholson, is a journalist and private investigator who comes across a murder and political corruption of epic proportion in the city of Los Angeles.
You're a very nosy fellow, kitty cat, huh? You know what happens to nosy fellows?
After investigating the murder of femme fatale Evelyn Mulray's husband, JJ discovers that the water department is drying the land of water so it could be bought at a reduced price. JJ, assuming that the murder had something to do with the drought, sleeps with his main lead, Evelyn, follows her, and discovers that her sister is actually her daughter, a product of incest brought on by her father, Noah Cross, who is also the culprit of the murder and droughts plaguing the city of Los Angeles. Mystery thriller ends with Evelyn attempting to escape with her daughter, only to be shot and killed by the police. Cross then takes the daughter away. Baffled, JJ is then told by his assistant,
Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown.
These dark and cynical plots that leave the audience with a less than happy ending continue to be seen in cinema, once again leading up to modern times.
7827, roger. All units on frequency stand by.
Aim the camera at the car and start filming.
An interesting take on this perspective can be seen in a more recent, contemporary film, Nightcrawler. The New Age crime drama mirrors this dark and cynical ideology by humanizing the questionable morality of news gathering through lead role Lewis, or Lou Bloom, played by Jake Gyllenhaal. The norm for mental stability is put into question by glamorizing Lou's socially obscure characteristics as he continues to thrive as a protagonist. Pegged as nothing more than a thief at the beginning of the film, he grows into a journalistic vigilante, willing to do whatever it takes to acquire newsworthy footage, even if that means breaking the law or defying common moralistic traits.
Can't jeopardize my company's success to retain an untrustworthy employee.
This psychopathic ideology sheds light on the questionable morality of sensationalizing media that thrives on anguish and despair, heavily criticizing unethical journalistic practices. Similar to the less celebrated character Cross in Chinatown, who symbolizes the decaying morality of the American dream through rape and corruption. Both films had unsatisfying endings, highlighting the realism of the crime, mystery, and noir genres that commonly house elements portraying contemporary society and practices. As the evolution of life continues to progress, so does genre filmmaking. The common whodunit mystery has blossomed into numerous subgenres that in turn reflect common ideologies and practices, whether they are favorable or heavily criticized. Contemporary films bring to light social norms and injustices experienced by modern society through an array of protagonists, antagonists, characters, themes, plot lines, and subjects. A technique heavily used today that can be found in the earliest works of humankind.
Sentada e hoje